So welcome to How Do You Do, fellow kids? Thriving on streaming media after 40. I almost dressed up with the skateboard and the hat and everything. I'm not that cool, though. So my name is Bobby Blackwolf. I have been a longtime video game podcaster over 17 years, based here out in the Atlanta area, currently also doing my show on Twitch. And I started when I was not yet 29. And I always make the jokes that I'm still 29 and nobody believes me anymore. They believe me for a little bit. And Rob's like, don't wear that joke out. But I am now in my 40s and still doing it and still loving it. And this panel, I proposed more to just talk about what it's like to do streaming or any kind of content creation when you're a little bit older, because there are a lot of us that still enjoy this, doing this, and still feel young, but also want to reach out and to make content that younger people can also enjoy. And because there's a whole audience out there and you can't just limit yourself to one. So that's kind of the goal of the panel. Very much welcome your questions as well. We do have a microphone in the center as well. But first, I do want to go down the row to have everybody introduce each other. Do we want to talk? And I do want to mention about the charity first, and I'm going to mention the charity again. We've got a bucket here in the center, but the official DragonCon charity, and I love reading charity blurbs because I've worked with the Games Done Quick charity marathons, and I get to do this a lot for them. But the Open Hand charity serves the community by empowering people to live healthier, more productive lives. It serves a diverse population of men, women, and children with unique nutrition needs. And DragonCon's could be matching dollar for dollar for everything that you put in the bucket after the panel. Don't come up right now and do it. But we would love your help on that after the panel. So once again, I'm Bobby Blackwolf. I am one of the co-owners of the Voice of Geeks Network. We're a podcast network and Twitch channel about all things geek culture. I've been doing a video game podcast called The Bobby Blackwolf Show that I thought I was only going to do for like 17 days. So I named it after myself, and I've been doing it 17 years later. Yeah. And I am at vognetwork.com. So we're going to go down the line and have everybody also kind of mention like when you started. And I'm not going to ask like specific ages, but like what stage of your life you started and what stage of your life you're at now. Or you can say specific numbers if you want, but I'm not going to ask.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Roberts, and I host a long-running video game podcast called Orange Lounge Radio, which debuted in 2002. So we just celebrated 20 years on the internet this year.
That's legit.
Thank you. Thank you. We all met playing Dance Dance Revolution, and after our legs gave out, our voices kept going. So we have a lot to talk about. But actually, my first exposure to internet radio was all the way back in college at KCSC Internet Radio in Chico, California. Okay. Yeah, thanks. 1997 was the first time I ever did internet broadcasting. So I was a DJ there for a few years, had a morning show. And then it was my good buddy, and if you're out there, Travis Donovan from Under Sedation Live, which was a Rocky Horror Picture Show pre-show internet broadcast on Live 365. And it was Travis Donovan in the year 2000 that showed me any idiot can podcast. Thank you, sir. And here I am all these years later. So it's wonderful to be here.
Hi, I'm Fader Black. I do Twitch streaming and TikTok content. I started about 5 years ago when I was a stay-at-home mom and I was bored and I wanted to have something to do and actually connect and talk to other adults, because you can only do so much Disney and, kid shows and stuff without being able to interact with everybody else. And I enjoy it. I have fun. I go through ups and downs where I don't do it as much because job and life, but I enjoy it and I like it. So, hi.
I'm Clint McElroy. I do not really pee in the charity can, so please. Didn't know it was the charity can when I did that gag. I was 29, 38 years ago. I know. They're new glasses. I also tried to get away from my kids, and then they hired me to be on a podcast. So now I'm kind of stuck hanging with them. We do. I'm on a podcast called The Adventure Zone, and thank you. I do very little on it. This guy does more. Yeah, proud parent of 3, grandparent of countless.
And Dad, how did you get into radio?
Yeah, I was in radio for I started in radio in 1976. So that was 1976. Me and George Washington started a little 5,000 watt radio station in Fresno, California. Just a couple of kids in a crazy dream. California.
So you've been
California, another California.
so you've been doing 45 years, right? Over 45 years. God, I know it's unlikely, but if you could hang in there 5 more years to get to 50, that would be.
I couldn't. You made me stop doing radio, so I could.
But like, this is radio for nerds. That's what podcast is. That. So, hi, I'm Justin McElroy. I'm Clint McElroy's direct supervisor. Yeah, most of my time is spent monitoring his output. No, I do podcasts like The Adventure Zone, My Brother, Me, Sawbones, The Empty Bowl, To Let Those Blart, a few others. Besties, that's one. And Dad got me into doing we were doing ad reads when we were kids, like come to Buchanan Auto Mall where the prices are, and whenever you need a kid. And then I hosted the weekend, like Sunday 6 to midnight shift at the country station. He made me change my name because he thought we'd be accused of nepotism. So I was Justin Tyler, good times, great country, 103.3 WTCR. Tracy Morgan right after this. And
Tracy Morgan.
Yeah, no, that would be wild. Tracy.
I'm Brian Fellow.
No, okay, that's that. Yeah, that's right. That's
Y'all?
Tracy. That's Tracy. Yeah, country star Tracy Morgan. But I started podcasting in 2007 with the Joystick Podcast, and have been doing it basically continuously since then. I'm 40. Oh, I'm 41 years old. I have 2 kids. All right.
For the first time, I'm not the oldest guy in the room. So,
welcome.
everyone, my name is Todd Cochran. I've been a podcaster. Actually, I was one of the first 50 podcasters in 2004. So I was really on the ground floor. So I do 3 podcasts: Geek News Central, which is the show that actually is hitting 18 years in, 2 weeks. So 1,700 episodes on that, almost 1,000 of them streamed live. A new media show, which has got about 700 episodes, all of them streamed live. And a show that we do for my company, Podcast Insider. I'm the founder of Blueberry Podcasting, a podcast service company as well. So probably I spend about 5 hours a week live. And it's tech, it's podcasting. That's the primary 2 topics.
And also, I want to mention that Blueberry is a sponsor of the track. They've been a sponsor of the digital media track for several years now, and we couldn't do this without them. So thank you, Todd, for the support of the DragonCon digital media track. So the first question I kind of want to ask is, since your podcast you're doing, when you look at maybe the age ranges of people that are listening or watching or consuming your content, do you see it as more of the older generation or older people, or do you see kind of the wide swath from up to like 19-year-olds or 18-year-olds and up? Like what do you see as your audience right now?
For me, it's interesting because having done Orange Lounge Radio for 20 years now, I do have an audience that we have at the show where there's several people that have been there since relatively the beginning or whenever the beginning was for them. And they've kind of stuck with it. And I'm, obviously so grateful for that. So I do feel like it's a little bit of an older crowd because there's a lot of people that, they started listening, maybe back when we were exclusively talking about music games, and they've kind of stuck with us this entire time. And so they've kind of grown up with us. And it's always interesting because you also, and you've used this term a lot, because I work a lot with Bobby, obviously. I have a lot of former listeners too.
Yeah.
That, they grow up, they go on to achieve big thing. Actually, no, seriously, they go on to achieve big things. Like one of my good pals is like the face of I don't want to say what video game company, because it's a large video game company's podcast at this point and media stuff. And I remember when you were in high school listening to Orange Lounge Radio.
Yeah.
It's really cool that he's gone on to do those things. So yeah, I find that for the most part, that part kind of skews older when we're doing the podcast and live streaming because we've all grown up together. But if I'm doing a personal stream and let's say I'm playing something like Dead by Daylight, online and live streaming that, I find that's where a lot of folks that are, oh, you're old enough to be my dad will come in and, What do you play Dead by Daylight? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, it's that's kind of where the diverse age range comes in.
I mean, mine's kind of all over the place because mostly no one ever believes I'm 40 anyway. So half of the people are like, no, you're like 20. So we're just going to kind of fit you into that age group. But it's not the case. But TikTok, actually, I feel like I get a lot more of the older crowd that watches my TikToks versus the kids, which I enjoy. I'm like, yay. Because they're more polite and they're nicer and they have better comments.
I have no idea who's listening.
Are you even listening?
No, I didn't think so. I'll brush up every once in a while. No, I when we first started doing this,
I'm going to barge in with you because we have the same audience. So
yeah,
we wild to
I
this
think
twice.
I'm not. This sounds so hokey, but the appeal for me is that the person that the people I want to appeal to is I'm doing it for an audience of 4, and that's us. I have always felt like if we amused each other, that was our target audience. Because when we first started, it was just, well, come on, let's make, this is a lark, but let's just have a good time doing it. And while of course we've had to accept the fact that the audience has gotten quite a bit larger and it's kind of spread out over the demographics, I think for what we are creating, as long as we have that entertaining each other and amuse each other, that I'm pleased with the product. I would say we probably started skewing younger.
Yeah, we the Adventure Zone specifically had a sort of like around the end of our first story, which is called Balance. We had a big upsurge in sort of I guess you'd call it Tumblr visibility, and that seemed I think it was the number one thing on Tumblr, which is can I just say a real roller coaster ride. If you ever want to be the subject of that kind of year, it is a trip. And I think that did bring a lot of younger folks in. And so it really does feel kind of all over the place. But that's very gratifying to me. I like to make something that anybody can get into. Even cool kids that are allowed to check out cursing.
When I started my show, I was 40. And I knew right away that I wanted to monetize. So I was tracking the audience pretty close in those early days. And it was, again, audio only in the beginning. And I knew we were like 30 to 55 was the age range with about a 70-30 split between men and women. It's a tech show. So it was hard to drag the ladies in because, it was just geeky stuff. And at the time, times have changed, obviously. But when I started streaming about 12 years ago, and I think the first platform was Ustream, we started to see the age demographic as you go a little bit younger. And what has happened for me, at least, because I've been in this space now for 18 years, is my audiences grew up with me. So I have a lot of 50 plus in the audience, but also keeping the 35-year-olds still coming in, and even 30-year-olds. The audience, male-female split has stayed about the same. But what's interesting for me is the actual consumption of the content is 80% audio, 20% video as an actual video podcast. The stream, I'll be honest with you, the stream doesn't hardly get anything. But that's not why I did the stream. I did the stream for another reason. It was because I was living in Hawaii and I was bored because I was doing it at 8 o'clock at night. And there was no one awake in the United States, a lower 48 at least, I'm sorry, that was awake when I was doing my live stream. So I had people coming in from Australia and New Zealand and watching. So for me, it was an interactive piece. But again, the demographic of the audience has stayed the same. But in all honesty, if you're not gaming, if you're just doing a talk show, why do people even watch? You do an hour show and you're just in front of the camera. It is a little bit of a weird dynamic, but some listen, some watch. But yeah, that's more to the answer. But that's where the demo split for me.
So the question I'm going to ask is, how do you tailor your content to possibly reach out to the other age ranges? And I actually have an answer to this that I'm going to give first. It's going to upset people. I'm going to be kicked off the track. Charles McFall's never going to let me back. But one of the things that I had to learn as I got older, and I had to think back to my childhood and how much I hated this. And it's more about how I can, have people who are younger still want to hear my opinions. Nobody cares what it was like back in your day. And I used to do this. Back in my day, we only had one stick and one button, and we liked it. Nobody cares. I didn't care when my dad said, back in my day, my dad hit me until I changed the channel, and that was the remote control. I didn't care when he said that either. And so I wound up realizing, and I do video game content, and this is hard to swallow for some people who are older. The greatest time for video games is right now. It's not when you were younger. I usually always say people's favorite Final Fantasy game is the one that came out when you were closest to 12. And that is true for a lot of people. And that's why the younger people, they're like, Final Fantasy X was my favorite. And because they were 12 when that came out. But you got to realize, like, the Super Nintendo might have been my favorite system. There were a lot of stinkers on the Super Nintendo. I'm only thinking about 50 to 100 games that were great on the Super Nintendo. There were 750 that came out.
If I could say, Bobby, one thing to like build on that.
Yeah.
There is the one area where you can sort of do that is when you're using it to illustrate something that is useful now.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really like, if you talk about, there's a lot of challenges when you're older than a lot of your audience, but one of the strengths is you can bring that experience in a way, in that context,
Yes.
in a way that is useful. Like that's playing into what
Useful content.
your
Right.
unique selling,
But-
proposition is,
But
is that.
complaining about how kids today have it too easy and
Oh,
we didn't
yeah.
have online, don't do that, because that's talking down to a good portion of your audience. That's going to be the majority of your audience. And so there's a lot of people, they live by that. They're like, I just want to tell them that it was so much better when I had a Commodore 64. Yeah, I had a Commodore 64 too. I loved it. But I also have a PS5, thankfully, somehow. And there's stuff that's great on that. So how do you, what other tips do you have, or how have you kind of tailored your content to appeal to more than just your age bracket?
I think you hit on something very important. I just want to echo that. And that is, you said the phrase talking down. And that is the important part of that, because, and I think to tie into your point as well, is that there is a time and a place to discuss like classic gaming. And I think there's a lot of like, the younger generation that thinks some of the stories are actually kind of cool. Like, people love it when we get into stories about, oh, we used to go play, Dance Dance Revolution and then smoke cloves in the parking lot. And wonder why we couldn't pass the hard songs in the game. We kept running out of breath. So there are some times to tell those stories, but it's when you talk down, right? When it's like, you don't know what it's like. That's when people are like, I'm not here to be yelled at, right?
Yeah.
So
They don't want to be lectured.
right. That's
For the
exactly,
most part.
that's what a lot of people are escaping. So I think to piggyback on that a little bit, for me, it's be authentic. That's what it is. I think you just have to kind of own it. Like, yeah, I'm 44 and I'm on Twitch playing video games. Cool, and you just kind of own it. And like when people will come in and see my stream for the first time, I might introduce myself and I'll be like, hey, I'm Rob Roberts and I'm like your gay uncle. Welcome to the community. I'm the cool gay uncle you want to know. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to steal this from my husband because he also does streaming. So shout out for Alan Alchemy. I'm going to use it. But when people come into his chat, I think this is so funny. He'll say, yeah, hey, I'm Alan. And, I'm old enough. I probably had a crush on your dad in high school. And I can't tell you how many people he's won over just by being funny and authentic and just owning it. And it's like, whatever, but we're all here to enjoy the same thing at the end of the day, right? We want to see people, survivors get horrifically murdered and hooked in this wonderful game of Dead by Daylight or whatever it is I'm streaming. We're all here to watch the game and stuff like that. And at that point, to me, like age really is just a number if you're authentic. Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Like, I don't really discuss like age or any of that stuff with my streams. It's just everyone's talking and chatting. It comes up every once in a while because you'll make like a reference to a video game or a movie or just an event, and someone goes, "Wait, you were alive then?" Yeah, thanks. But aside from that, you don't talk down to people. You're not like, oh, it was different, because like for me, I still stream WoW. I've streamed WoW since forever. I played vanilla beta WoW. So, I'll tell stories about that. And people are like, what were you, like 5? No, I wasn't, but that's not the point. But so you don't, especially when Classic came out and everyone's like, oh, well, this is this way and this is that way. And it's like, well, back in the day, it used to do this, but you don't do that, because then you do kind of alienate people from that way of talking. And you don't want to do that because, you want to have everybody different. all there, because when you have all your chats and stuff on Twitch, like having the different age groups, especially because you're streaming versus podcasting, you do have a lot more interaction with people. So you want to have people talking back to you, and you can't do that if you're alienating half the people that come in with like age remarks. So
I like the fact that I think that by its very nature, podcasting and streaming lends itself to the younger audience. I kind of like the idea of a lot of people who listen to our show have told us, well, I got my dad to listen, and we listen together. And I've always thought that was kind of cool. And, for most of the people who you are talking about in that age group, it's probably their introduction to podcasting and streaming altogether. And it's sort of like my 93-year-old mother, who has become this whiz of playing euchre on her computer, and who when she first started was going, what? She was the stereotype. But I think that I agree bringing in new young audiences, but I think there's also some play in bringing in people who are new and young to the very medium itself. And I think that's a good way to look at it. And I think that's a good way to also expand who you're reaching in that direction, not just in a downward direction.
Just to build on what you all already said, which I think respect is if you take away one thing, it's respect, right? Because that'll get you through whatever. I would also, I decided to call it this, and it's not exactly accurate, but rather than just not talking down, not talking up to your audience in a way where you're trying to pass yourself off as, younger or more plugged in than you are. You know what I mean?
How do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah, I think people could smell a phony from a mile away, and like, oh, this person they're really. When I was in my mid 30s, so I'm still fairly old, and I thought the term emoji was a cool new way of saying emotions. So I said to someone, or said it on a show or something, it's like, man, it seems like you have a lot of emojis about this. And it's like I had my podcasting card revoked for a while, and I was in suspension and stuff. So yeah, I try to stick to stuff that I know, which doesn't mean, by the way, that you shouldn't pay attention and learn and try to, don't go so far in the other way. Like, I'm just going to say groovy all the time. I don't give a crap, trying to, keep abreast of what's going on. Just don't fake it,
And Groovy's coming back.
Is it, Dad? That's,
yeah, it is.
Fantastic.
It
is.
Well, that's the new Earthworm Jim. So
Imagine your relief, Dad.
I think the thing I like to add to this is that if you are older streaming, your tribe of listeners or people that consume your content, you need to find out where they're actually at first. Are they on Facebook? Are they on Twitter? Are they YouTube Live? Where are they hanging out? So for my particular tribe of listeners, they're mostly on Facebook. So I stream on Facebook. Now I also stream on everything else using Wowza. So I transcode and put out 8 different streams. Why? Why do I do that? Well, someone's going to discover me on Twitch. Well, when I'm on the show doing it live, I'm saying, hey, come over here. I tell them where the website is. That's Moonbase Alpha. And I want them to really kind of decide there where they're going to interact with me. At the same point, I use that same audience to say, tell your friends, tell your kids, tell people that you know about this show, because that's going to be the number one way to not only grow the audience, but also keep that demographic continuing going to the left. Because in all honesty, if you're in this long enough, people get sick of you and they leave. And they may be gone for a couple of years and then they'll come back. So I think that's one of the things about making sure you stay relevant. Now, you said something earlier about the interactivity. So if you're doing just live, you don't have to worry about it. They're just seeing you live. But if you're also doing audio, don't forget that they can't see what you're talking about. So you have to describe what you're showing that live audience. So if you have an audio podcast, you have to keep that piece in there, or you'll disenfranchise that audience, and they'll leave. So depending on how you've started your audience out, if they've started audio and you've added video, don't disenfranchise the audio folks. And
We
then-
couldn't use video chat just to record our podcast, not for streaming or anything. We couldn't use video chat because we couldn't get that rule. There would be like a 3-minute segment of us just making faces at each other. It's like, guys, this is unlistenable. No one wants this.
Right. Well, those emotions do come through, and I think that's a big piece of the podcasting piece, because you've got the interactivity now, where we all binge watch YouTube stuff, right? Or watch YouTube live. So there's a value in each.
And there's actually a whole panel about how to, convert your audio podcast to video tomorrow. I believe it's tomorrow. Yes, it's tomorrow. So we can expand on that topic a little bit then. So
Can I just to what you said though, as the kids would say, so true, bestie, is that you if you're going to be doing something that is meant to be on a podcast, you have to be make sure you're being descriptive. And I face that a lot, because people be like, why is it Orange Lounge Radio if it's video? And I'm like, because the point isn't actually the video, and we have to describe things. And I think it's also good for accessibility too, is another important thing to remember too, is that not everybody you can listen to Twitch. And Twitch even has a way to show you this person is just listening, and that's important too.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And the closed caption.
Yeah.
Very good point too.
Yeah. So we've talked about, or I've asked questions about, the younger audience, but how do you get older people that maybe don't think about, like, how would you reach out to them to get them to check out Twitch? Because they may think, well, nobody on Twitch is like me, but there are people on Twitch like them, or YouTube or podcasts. How do you reach out to them and give them something that they're going to want to watch or listen to?
I think the authenticness there is very important as well. Like if I talk to coworkers, because I do have a day job, if I talk to coworkers about, what I'm doing online and stuff, they'll go, oh yeah, my kid watches Minecraft videos online.
Yeah.
It's like that. Yeah, kind of, but you have to be able to sort of explain to them that there's much more to it, that there's much more, like the thing that makes Twitch so appealing is that there's literally anything you can watch on Twitch. Well, that's safe for work, relatively.
I don't know, some of it isn't.
I guess that's true. What's a better way to put it? Whatever. But mostly anything is available on Twitch, and that, you can go look for. So if competitive eating is something that you're into, there's that. So, if I know that a coworker might be into, I don't know, Game of Thrones, because they always want to talk to me about that show, even though I've never seen an episode, because I'm too busy watching Twitch. I'll say, well, there's places you can watch people talk about this show and, interact with that and chat at them and so forth. So you kind of have to sell why somebody might want to interact with this besides what they've just kind of seen their kids doing.
Yeah. And the kids will ask you well, if you're not playing Fortnite, what are you doing on Twitch? And I'm like,
It's very true. I mean, because you have to find something that they're going to relate to, whether it be, I build Legos on Twitch, and a lot of people like to watch that. So that's really something that people enjoy. And there's actually a whole panel about that tomorrow. Or there's cooking streams. There's, people do movie podcasts. If someone like one of my really good friends, he really got into Twitch because he used to listen to a lot of movie podcasts. And there's people that do the movie podcasts via Twitch, and then they have the visual part where they can show parts of the movies and talk about that, which was something that he was really interested in, being able to take that listening to those to a different level. There's also, teachers, especially during COVID, a lot of teachers were doing art classes and things like this. Like I think Emily was doing that, all of her art classes and stuff via Twitch. So it gave people a lot of reason to go check out maybe a different media that they have never done before, no matter what the age group was on that. Because it's oh yeah, Minecraft, because my kid watches Minecraft. I mean, that's what she does. But even she started to branch out on the other things because something else will show up.
I think you can, like I said before, I think encouraging group viewing, group participation, the people you already have consuming your product. I don't think there's anything wrong with actively promoting to them, hey, if you know somebody older, or you have somebody that think might be interested in this, a coworker or a family member or something, and encourage them to check it out with you. I think the very same thing that I brought up before, which is the fact that the very ease for say, a younger consumer, because listen, I live in Appalachia, and from the day I started podcasting with my sons, the first part of the conversation, the first 15 minutes of it was explaining what podcasting is. What is, do you get in a pod and do radio?
I think you're a little
yes.
faster on the uptake than that, if memory serves.
Yeah, well, it took, I picked up on it pretty quick, but it forced me. But I think to encourage group participation and, you know, and that way somebody will then become familiar with that, you know, medium, and maybe be more open to seeing, oh, you mean I just have to do this on my computer or even my phone? And I think that kind of lends itself to that.
It's tough. It's tough because you're on so many different platforms, and each person, like, each platform that you extend yourself to is another like language that you have to be fluent in, and that is something that like is tough. I guess for anybody is like there's different cultures on each platform, and you can like really invalidate a lot of what you're doing by not knowing how to approach that specific platform. We have people who really like to listen on YouTube. We had a big like YouTube audience, and I think it's just because they're already there, right? They're already in the ecosystem, and it's just the way that they kept up with it. Like, it's not my way of doing it. Like, I don't do Twitch basically at all, and I'm also not a Twitch consumer, which is interesting. Like, I've always just been audio first and thinking audio first. So video is like a learning process that we put off for a really long time just because we weren't fluent in it.
I think I'm going to upset the apple cart here a little bit. I build my brand on my site, on my.com, and all my marketing efforts are to drive them to that website. Now, where they consume, I don't care. But how I get them in is I tell them, go to live.geeknewscentral.com or geeknewscentral.com/live, or just search Geek News Central. They come to the website, they see the live link, they see the subscribe links to the show. So all I care about is getting them to the platform for them to be able to pick where they want to consume. That is why I am everywhere. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you just got to be on Twitch, or you just got to be on Twitter, or you just got to be on Facebook. No, I don't care how they consume the content, long as they get to it, because the brand is me and my show, or my show and I want to be proper in English. But I think to attract anyone, new listeners, older listeners, whatever, you got to have, again, I refer to Moonbase Alpha. It's kind of weird. That's what I call my website, because that's where I want everyone to come to get the access to the content, whether it's the archive, whether it's live. They may consume it on YouTube. They may consume it on Twitch. They may consume it in my Twitter stream, but they know where home base is. And everyone that's young, and I'm assuming everyone here is maybe over 40, maybe not. I see some young folks in here too. If you don't,
how dare you? By the way, these are secrets. You're not supposed to be here.
If you don't think you need a website, my entire growth strategy for my show and how I was able to pay myself for 13 years without taking a salary from my company was basically build my brand.
I mean, that's what I do. I mean, I have my website, and mine's faderblack.com, so it's really easy. But I do different types of content on different platforms. So I don't put the same content out on multiple platforms. Each platform has its niche of style of content that goes for. So you go to the website, and then you can kind of pick and choose the style of content you want to find.
Yeah, and respectfully, and there is no right or wrong answer to this,
Oh,
period.
absolutely.
It's what
Yeah.
works for you. Part of the reason, I like to invest in Twitch, and I realize these sites can come and go at any time, right?
Yeah, we all need to be on Mixer, right?
So, you do have to diversify where you're at and so forth.
Yeah.
But I have found the best way to grow my audience on Twitch is to participate in Twitch. And if I am on Twitch, on Facebook, on YouTube, on everything, I can't actively participate in all of those things to a point that's authentic, going back to that point, where it doesn't look like I'm just coming in saying, hi, I'm just here to say hi as a fellow streamer at my channel. I'm not here to plug it. But because that's what it would be if I was just dropping into all these other places. So I also think that sometimes by kind of investing in one platform, that is how you grow within that platform. But it is a risk, and I fully admit that it could go away someday, and that would be a big oof.
Just to
Flip is gone, Ustream is gone.
Yeah. It's just to add another layer of context, and I think this is just reinforcing why there's different fits for everybody. When we had our show and we were uploading every episode to YouTube, so if you want to watch it there, if you want to listen in a browser, if you wanted to listen via a feed, it was all good by us. What changed that actually was dynamic ad insertion, and this might be getting a little too crunchy, but if you're rather than pre-recording all your ads in the show, dynamic ad insertion lets you put it into injected in the show when someone downloads it, right? So rather than listening to a year's old ad, you're listening to a current ad, and the person making the podcast is making the money off of that ad. Where if it doesn't have that, then it's an old, the company may not even exist anymore. Who knows? But we had to be in control of where that audio was hosted and where the person was listening to it, because we couldn't do that on YouTube. We had to be able to control it, which is like just that different. Why it's like different models and different platforms work better for everybody.
Why do you still do this?
Oh,
I don't know what else I do in my weekend.
That's true.
No, I feel like this whole being able to I'm sitting here today because of this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have so many life experiences that I've had if I wasn't continuing to do what I do. And so that's a huge part of it. And just meeting the people that I've met. I feel like, and it's funny, some of my friends will always tease me about this, is like, it doesn't matter what city you're going to, Rob, you know somebody in that city. And it's like, because I've been lucky to have met people around the world thanks to this lovely podcasting, streaming hobby that I have. So I think all of that has just played into, I don't want to say my personality, but just kind of like how I exist now. Again, I don't know what I would do with my weekends without it. I guess go on a cruise.
Yeah. I mean, because you get to do stuff like this. Like if we weren't doing the things that we're doing on, content creation or whatever, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this. And that's kind of cool. Because when I was in high school and coming to DragonCon, it was always like, I want to be on a panel one day. That'd be really cool. And here we are. Like I'm on 3 and moderating 1 this year. So to be able to look back and be like, I actually attained this thing that I wanted to do is a really cool thing, which wouldn't happen without doing the content creation.
And for me, it's creation. I think I've always wanted to create. I've always wanted to write. I spent, like Justin said, 4.5 decades in the radio business, and my only goal was to make somebody's day a little better. My plan was never to change the world. My plan was never to convince somebody to join a party or anything along those lines. Well, not that kind of party. It was just to entertain folks and to be able to do that with my family and all of the things that go along with it. I'm the luckiest person on the planet to be able to do this. And I'm not going to lie, I'm an egomaniac. I eat this crap up. Are you kidding me? I love meeting people. I love hearing from people that something we did put a smile on their face on a rough day. That stuff means a lot to me. And to be able to say that you did that is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, that is really nice because my TikTok stuff really focuses on mental health. And so to get the messages that I get from people all the time that are like, knowing that someone else is going through the same things that I'm going through, that's not hiding the bad days, because a lot of content creators tend to just put out the good stuff that, hey, my life looks perfect on a daily basis. I don't do that. I show the horrible parts, like the bad breakups, the depression, like I show all of those things. And for people to reach out and be like, it was helpful for them to just know that somebody else is dealing with it and not hiding it and sharing it with the world just makes them feel validated in some of the feelings that they have when they're going through things. And I get messages like that, like daily. And it's just like, oh,
yeah, it's the greatest professional honor of my entire life is that people make us such an integral part of their lives at happy times and sad times. And it means so much to me. I owe the people that we make stuff for almost everything, because they've provided me with a life for me and my wife and my kids. And I just would never think to walk away from that, because it's a daily source of joy and comfort. I struggle with mental health a lot, and I have found that there's a floor on how bad I can feel, because when it's real bad, I think about the people who have shared their stories with me about us having a little bit of improvement in their life, and I feel like, well, I must be doing something right. So that is why I do it, and I will continue to do it. I'm also have very few other skills.
For me, I told my audience from the very beginning, when it's not fun anymore, I'm done. And so far, it's still fun. Now,
I like the threat hanging out there. I don't know.
So you people,
Yeah, you better have fun.
No, it helps that I get a check every month from my sponsor. So, that keeps it a little more fun too. But, I think, what we see with content creators is that more than half fail in their attempt to start something. And I really believe that it's because they're not passionate enough about the content. If you can talk about something once a week, no sweat for 2 years straight, you've got the makings of a great show, and if you're passionate about it, it's going to take you a long ways. But I'm going to go back to one thing I heard a couple of things here about your audience. And I've told this story a few times. I know none of you really know me, but my second year of podcasting, I was getting ready to hit my 200th episode. On that anniversary date, we had a big celebration planned. We weren't live. We're just doing a podcast. And then just unfortunately, that same day, my father was killed in an automobile accident. And it was before we had iPhones. And I just sent a little message out to the audience. I said, listen, be back in 10 days. Got to go home and bury my dad. And I didn't have a laptop, nothing. Where I was living in rural America, there was, the internet sucked. I mean, bad sucked. So, but when I got back, I had over 5,000 emails of condolences from the audience. And that's when I really realized, boy, your audience, if they're into you and they love you, they are like family. So for me, I really now do the show because it's a family of listeners. So, and if it doesn't matter if it's 100 or 1,000 or 50,000, it doesn't matter. They're there to be part of your tribe.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot too as well, because we're on Sunday nights. I do the first hour, Orange Sound Radio does the next 3 hours, and we have people that are there. They're like, I just need to stop thinking about what's going on in my life, and for a couple hours and think about this. But it also goes the other way. 3 weeks ago, my mother passed away on a Saturday. I still came and did my show on Sunday night, and my family's like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because I need to think about something silly like video games for an hour. And I went through the whole show. And then at the end, I did tell my audience, I'm like, by the way, my mother passed away yesterday. I am here because talking about this thing that's silly, these video games that ultimately don't really matter in the grand scheme of everything, got my mind off of the troubles of my personal life, everything going on. And it helps other people with the troubles of the world and all that other stuff. And just having that hour of just being able to talk about something inconsequential and silly was so great for me to help get through that. And so I thanked my audience for being there for me, and they've thanked me for being there for them when they're trying not to think about either stuff in their personal life or just stuff going on in the world that we've all been dealing with for many, many years. So.
Can I say one more thing on the original question, and not, and I know it's getting a little heavy right now, but but that's
we'll bring it back soon.
That's the real part of this, is that, as we are getting older, those people that we love are leaving, right? And going on that next big adventure. And I'm reminded very recently of I'm outliving everybody.
I was just patting his shoulder. Felt tenderly about my dad inexplicably. I don't know why. It just
told you we'd bring it back.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that zinger, but I'm going to try. I'm going to go back to my original point. But I'm reminded of in the video game scene, which you and I closely follow, there was a indie developer, I believe his name was Rob Hale, that passed away recently within the last month. And as a parting gift, and I literally mean that, he gave away his games for free on Steam. I believe they're called Waves and Waves 2 as just kind of a tribute to, what he had done and a thank you gift to the fans. And it brings me back to the point with your original question, why we do what we continue to do, because we're putting art out into the world. And that is one of the big things. That this is something that will be left after I'm gone. This is like that gift I'm trying to give to the world to make it a better place than I found it, type of thing. And that is a huge motivation as well. It's just creating art. Believe it or not, podcast and streaming, it's art. It's modern art, but it's art. So I think that's another huge motivator.
So I'm going to ask one more question myself, and then if anybody does have a question, if you want to line up in front of the mic, and then we can get some questions out here. But I want to ask, since we've been since a lot of us have been doing this for a while, what's a memorable moment from your podcasting, streaming, whatever career that you want to share? And I'm actually going to share one. Since I've been doing this for a long time, I used to broadcast when PAX was a lot smaller, when there was only one PAX. I was broadcasting. I was from like a table outside the media room, and the editor-in-chief of Joystick, Chris, was coming over, and I was like, Chris, you want to be on my podcast? And he's like, sure. And there's this other guy named Justin who was just standing fuming over on the side. And then later on the Joystick podcast, I hear, all right, I'm going to narrowcast it, Bobby Blackwolf, right now. You stay away from Chris. You stay away from Chris. And this is the first time we've met since that day. He narrowcasted at me.
I guess somehow we managed to squash the beef, Bobby. We figured it out.
Did you ask this question just to call him out here
That's
on this
so
very
funny.
day?
Yes.
Oh God.
I
was hoping he'd remember too.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is a little bit heavier, sorry, but it is what it is. Like, honestly, like the biggest reward I've ever gotten is I've been emailed 3 times, and the first time was not like in all, but of on this topic, my life. And it's from listeners of the show who have emailed me saying, thank you for being gay and open on this show, because listening to you and hearing you talk about this as a normal, whatever that means, but that's what it comes through, gay guy, it's helped me realize some things about myself. And like, I remember all 3 of those emails I've gotten over the years on that topic, and it's been so impactful. And anytime I'm like, I don't know if I have it in me to keep going, I think about that sort of impact, and it's just like, it's so big. So that's like a memory I'll never forget, is that having that impact.
Honestly, my best one is one that involved my daughter, because I was Twitch streaming and 2020 happened, and her 5th birthday is in the middle of April. She was in kindergarten. It was going to be her first friend birthday party. She was so excited for it. And then, the world shut down in mid-March. So her party got canceled, obviously. So she was super, super sad about it. So what we ended up doing is I put together a birthday party with my Twitch community on our Animal Crossing island. And I know, right? So many people showed up. I had alerts set up for if people donated for her. I put out on my social media, anything that was donated that day would go to her to buy. We'd order stuff on Amazon for her for presents. She had a wish list. Some people bought things from the wish list, so she had things to open. And we were able to give her a birthday party for her 5th birthday that would not have been possible without the community that I've built through all of my streaming and stuff like that. And that's just really shows how much your community becomes your family and gets involved with everything that you do. And it's a great thing that would not exist otherwise.
Until you just asked this question a few minutes ago, I had completely forgotten this memory. But when we had just started doing the Adventure Zone, we were at PodCon.
I don't know the story. So
podcasting place the one in Seattle where we did our first live show.
Yeah, PodCon, yeah.
Okay, so we tour and we do these shows, but this was the very first time we'd ever done the Adventure Zone in front of a live audience.
No, okay, this would have been the LA Podcast Festival then.
Okay, LA Podcast Festival. And so we go and we It was rough. It was rough.
It was one of those where it was like it was set up like a panel. So rather than like the lights dim and the you make your triumphant entrance, it's like you just kind of shuffle out in a wizard costume and sit behind a bottle of water. It's like, so welcome to the show.
The build-up wasn't there.
Yeah.
But when it was done, we were kind of milling around, and Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall and News Radio, and in my opinion, one of the funniest guys around, walked up to me, and I was still old. Okay. It said, "Stick with it, young man. You're going places." And I thought that was the funniest damn thing I ever heard in my life.
Gosh.
Probably something to do with me, right?
Oh, you know what? It was when we played the Opry. When we played the Grand Ole Opry.
Okay.
Like, because growing up where we grew up, it was that was a real big deal. Like my Pawpaw would have been like over the moon. I mean, out of his mind. That's all I could think about. We were there, like, God, like if Pawpaw could see this, because it was, I mean,
it was on the stage of the Ryman Auditorium.
Yeah, Ryman Auditorium. Yeah.
And at the end of it, we sang a song.
Yeah, we got to do a song there, and it was like that was really. I mean, it's. There have been a lot, but that's the one that is on my mind. I felt really honored to do that.
Oh, I've got a good one. How many of you remember when the Mac Mini came out? The very first Mac Mini.
Yep.
That thing, I can't throw any money in the can, but it was a piece of beep. It was a horrible Mac product. And I was a hardcore Windows PC guy at the time. And on my podcast, I'm just dogging this Mac Mini. And I made the comment, if I could just have 15 minutes with Steve Jobs, I'd tell him what I really think. 3 days later, my phone rang. And it was a lady on the phone. She says, "Todd, I have Steve on the phone." "Steve who?" "I have Steve Jobs on the phone."
You're
for
kidding.
you.
Oh, my God.
So I got to talk to Steve Jobs about that piece of crap Mac Mini for about 12 minutes. And then to kick it off, a week later, the Alamoana Apple Store called me and they said, "We have something here for you. And we need you to come down." And I told my buddy Ryan, I said, this had to be something to do with the call with Steve. So he went and brought a camera along, and Steve Jobs had sent me a MacBook Pro. So,
Not a Mac Mini, though, so even he can admit
if I remember right, it was the first Intel version of the MacBook Pro, but it doesn't matter. But I tell you what, you never know who's listening.
Yeah.
There's so many others, but that was the best one.
That's a good one.
It's a good moment. Yeah.
Good lead.
I'm glad he called you. If that had happened to me, it'd been like, "Oh, Mr. McElroy hung up," and apparently he is. It says here, "Turn to dust." It is moving.
I actually had a call with a certain former president as well before he was a president. So I'll leave it at that. Right. So that was a good story too.
All right. Does anybody have any questions maybe for the panel up here, since we've got a little bit of time? And if not, I may throw a question back at y'all, but I do see some hands up. So if you want to, you can either come up or you can just shout. But we are streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/DC Digital Media. So if you can speak into the mic, that would be great.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. First, quick note, then my question. You guys on the Avenger Zone really helped me through the 2020 situation.
Thanks.
So that's my note there.
Thanks.
I was listening through the whole thing, and it was helpful.
But did you listen at 1x speed or 1.5? Be honest.
Somehow won.
Yeah. All right.
And I listened to the uncut original episode.
Woo. All right. Going out to the boneyard. All right.
So my question, last panel, I actually asked Travis about the regular creative process, like how he comes back to it every week. And he said schedule. So my question to you guys, since we're all old here, as adults with a lot of other things going on, is how do you make that time over and over again to make your projects happen?
I retired.
Foolproof.
And this became my full-time gig. So yeah, I mean, you still have things going on in life even when you're retired. You got doctor's appointments, and you got babysitting gigs.
It's not babysitting as a treasured memory you're forming with my children. It's different.
It's a commitment. Mondays and Thursday nights for me they're off the schedule for the last 16 years. The only thing that interrupted was a death, a marriage, or maybe once in a while a vacation. You have to make a commitment.
It's a job.
You got to find that time.
Like-
and if it isn't making you money, that's where the passion comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's people that will still commit to things that don't make them money. Like,
Right.
there's people that will attend church faithfully every Sunday night. Absolutely. There's people that'll go to bowling league every Thursday or brunch with friends every Saturday. Like, if it's that important, you're going to make that commitment. You just, I know it's a kind of a crap answer, but you just have to make the commitment.
Yeah.
But if you surrounded yourself with the right people will help you in making that commitment. Like I have a supportive system at home where, the person I live with is very understanding. Like Sunday nights is this, and this is just a thing we're going to work around. So he's able to incorporate, okay, so Sunday nights, that's my Costco night, so I'll go do that when Rob's doing the show or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, I know it's not the greatest advice, but it is one of those, you just have to make it a priority.
And that'll feel weird, I think, especially if it's something that you're doing as a hobby.
Yeah.
It might feel strange to make that space for yourself. To the people around you, it might feel a little like, why do I deserve this? It's like, because you do, because this is the thing you're going to make. So I think it's well worth it. It's also, this is less important, I think, if you're regularly streaming. But if you're doing, what if I have a big creative project that I have to do work over a long period of time for, I try to pay attention to when I'm in the place to do that. Scheduling is absolutely key for us, but I also try to stay plugged into okay, I'm feeling pretty good right now. I should try to make some stuff right now instead of watching TV or a movie or whatever.
But part of the sacrifice I made is I chose not to edit. But that also meant I had to be much more prepared to do the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that saved me a couple of hours every episode. If I had to done that editing, I would still not be in this space. So again, it's up to you what you want to put, what level you want to go.
Thank you. We got.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Okay. Hi. First of all, Adventure Zone, love it so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
For bringing that into the world. I wanted to ask you guys, I'm only 17, but I have seen platforms come in and out. How do you, having been around longer on the internet and the world of streaming, how do you navigate a career knowing that platforms go in and out every 5-10 years? How does that change the way?
Don't put all your eggs in
career?
one basket.
Yeah.
That's where multiple platforms will do you good, because they're all going to come and go, but they're not going to do it all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you try to build things on different spaces, then you will have something if things phase in and out.
Don't build your brand on rented land.
Yeah.
Have your own .com, and then you can adjust as those platforms change.
Or at least use the same name,
Yeah.
the same account name across multiple services, even if you don't have a .com, and that way you can be found on those new platforms. And possibly, because I know we've run into this some, when a new platform comes around, maybe go ahead and just register your name so somebody else doesn't. And that way, if that becomes a big platform, you're already got your space there and you can start tailoring content to it.
Or if you don't end up using that platform, no one else can use your brand.
Yeah.
And I think too, I've mentioned that I'm very invested in Twitch and doing things there, but you can still kind of spread your wings. And I want people to follow me on Twitter and follow me on Instagram and those sorts of things, because you're absolutely right. There was a time in a day when it was all about the MySpace top 8, and you are too young to know what I'm talking about. That's all right. But these things will come and go. But you know what? As long as you're authentic with your crowd and encourage them to follow you to other places, most of them will.
Yeah.
But you're always going to have some people that are like, I can't stand Twitter. I'm never going to have an account there. Okay. So I'll be in these other places too if you want to say hi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, don't sell your stuff to anybody. Stay owner of it. We've had smaller platforms that have tried to maybe you could be exclusive to us. And then those platforms gone. Take it from somebody that made 6 episodes of a streaming TV show for a network that no longer exists. Season 2 coming. No, I'm just kidding.
On bootleg DVDs.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sell it yourself.
They're in the dealer hall, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, are they selling boot? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. It's just old Christmas pageants that I was in.
That That's ClintMcAvoy.com.
Okay.
Videos.
I doubt there's no way you own that URL. Hello. Sorry.
Hi.
So a field that I'm really passionate about is digital archivism, but I feel like a lot of archivists, they don't provide a lot of context or curation. File organization is usually pretty sparse. If there's any, it'll be like 10 hours of Johnny Dollar, but you don't know if it's Milton Kramer or somebody else. So what are ways that you think contemporary platforms can best be utilized to not just make archival content more accessible, but also more appealing to institutions?
Mm.
I'm a nerd. I collect software, so I don't know.
Are you talking in terms of like accessibility, like someone who is new to what you are making to help them peruse older content, or
Yeah, like both just so if say someone wanted to get into like Boston Blackie, not just a way to have the archival files organized, but also like what sort of platforms are good for providing that limited amount of context, because like sometimes it's hard to just come into old radio shows and know what the heck's going on. So I know that there's like a balance to walk, but is it something like better for Twitch, for YouTube? For
we struggle. I can say from our perspective, we struggle with this constantly. I've seen people have really smart approaches to it. One is I know Gilmore Guys did this where they re-uploaded their very first episode with a disclaimer at the beginning that's like, hey, the show has changed a lot since we started doing this. If you went back to number 1, you probably are just skip ahead to like 150, whatever. So that I think is very smart. Also, Planet Money is a podcast that NPR does about economics, and they did this thing that was like a mini series within the series called Summer School, and that's actually how I started listening, because it's like you see something labeled number 1, and you're like, oh, okay, good. That's where I figure I should start there and get a sense for this thing. So having easy onboarding points, I think, and facilitating that is a good thing to do.
Can I just piggyback off that? Because I did the exact same thing last year for our 19th anniversary. We did episode 1, and we did a stream reward where we did a watch react to episode 1 with the huge disclaimer in the beginning that the language in 2002 does not reflect the language of today, and so forth, and that whole thing. And actually, I was relieved it was not as bad as I thought I was expecting it to be. So that was a relief. But to really get to the point of the question, it has been fortunate since the what I really do at the end of the day is a podcast. Yes, it's streamed as a podcast. It's very easy to fit, believe it or not, 928 episodes on a terabyte drive at this point. So I actually have a local backup of almost every episode. There are a few lost ones for various reasons, but almost every episode. And we were fortunate enough that a fan of ours this year for the 20th actually created an online space for all the old episodes. But at my request, a disclaimer that, again, what might have been said in the past is not okay to say now. But yeah, I understand there's reasons to want to have that archive content. Video, I think at this point is a little harder to do, but as storage expands, because those of you that are over 40 remember when it was a 40 megabyte hard drive and a 5 1/4 floppy disk drive, and you could barely fit anything on that, right? There will be a time in a day when video is just as storable in mass as that. And some would argue the cloud is that now and YouTube is that now, but obviously, again, that now it goes back to, but now I'm relying on YouTube and Google to be there forever, right? So I think there will come a time when the data storage at home is more accessible for you to be able to have your own video backups. Remember that you can download video backups from Twitch, from YouTube. You can download those raw files. And if you have the space to do it, I'd encourage you to do it.
Also, this isn't super duper scalable, but we have paid for every episode that we do over time to be transcribed, and that has helped, I think, a lot to make the stuff within easier to, because you have an hour-long audio file. Without that, it's just like, you're guessing. So being able to like do a search on our archives for certain terms and stuff like that has been helpful.
Yeah, because that's always think like, all right, I have probably cumulatively weeks of audio content archived, but just uploading it. If no one has if no one uses it, then what was the point of archiving it? So thank you.
And there are closed caption podcast players available now. Not that I'm pitching anything.
So we only have about 2 minutes left. So is this going to be? Are you going to be quick? You think?
Yeah.
All right.
Quick. First, we were at the Ryman. It was just as special in the seats as it was.
Good. Oh, thank you.
And the question is, interacting online with an audience is sort of like trusting your pink fleshy heart to a carnivore. How do you filter the feedback? being out online, being in a place where you're getting feedback. I know we talked about how wonderful it is to feel like you have a family in your audience. There's sometimes when families can suck.
Yeah.
So how do you filter that feedback? How do you deal with that?
A friend of mine who was on a reality show that wasn't very well received once gave me a piece of advice, and I've never forgotten this phrase, and that is, let the haters be your motivators.
I embrace the haters. I play their contents first on the show.
It's I you know what? I've gone through enough bullying in my life where I'm not going to let some person with a computer and keyboard get me down, but it is a thick skin I've developed over the years. And, it's just one of those things where, if you're going to get into this space, it's going to happen to you at some point, and it stinks, but you just have to remember, hey, that person wasted their time sending me that message to try to hurt my feelings.
Means you're doing good.
That means you're doing something right.
If people hate you for what you're doing something right.
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, we are.
Don't
at
pay
time.
attention
I'm
to
so
positive
sorry.
comments.
Yeah, I'm getting like they're over here. They're like 1, 0. So, but speaking of archiving, this was streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/DC Digital Media. It's going to be archived. This panel is going to be archived on YouTube as well. So that was a good point on that. Thank you so much for being here. If you liked what you heard here, take out your phone, open up the DragonCon app, rate it 5 stars, say that the moderator was great, say all the panelists were great. If you didn't like what you heard today, take out your phone and open up anything else and forget that I just said anything.
You'll be distracted instantly.
Right.
Maybe Pokemon Go or something. I don't know.
Minecraft.
Yeah. And thank you once again, Blueberry, for being our sponsor. Thank you so much for that. And also remember, we do have the charity here, the Open Hand Charity. DragonCon will match dollar for dollar for that during the con. So every donation helps make our community make a difference. My name is Bobby Blackwolf. I'm going to let everybody just give their socials one last time. Bobby Blackwolf on Twitter, on Twitch. I am a co-owner of the Voice of Geeks Network, VOG Network, on Twitter and on Twitch. I am live Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern with an AM radio style talk show about video games that I've been doing for 17 years.
At Mr. Rob Roberts on Twitter and Instagram, just Rob Roberts on Twitch.
PhaedraBlack.com. It's easy.
I don't know. I'm on Instagram.
McElroy.family, Mac.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Justin. I don't want to plug anything. I just want to say what I meant was if you don't pay attention to positive critiques, then you don't have to pay attention to negative ones either. So just do it what you like and don't worry about what anybody thinks. Okay, that's my time.
Todd at blueberry.com, blueberry without the E's because we couldn't afford the E's, and I'm at Geek News on Twitter.
Thank you.
Lovely meeting.
You too.